A very warm welcome to the program. From Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, we'll be speaking with a former seasoned Wall Street analyst, Dan Schleiniger, who is currently Vice President of Investor Relations at A르코스 도라도스요. Listed on the New York Stock Exchange, A르코스 도라도스요 is the largest independent McDonald's franchisee in the world, operating over 2,200 restaurants in Latin America and Caribbean. Dan, welcome to Global-Signs.
Thanks, Bruce. I appreciate the opportunity to be here.
Thank you. You have quite an interesting background. You were born in Brazil, grew up in Delaware, and attended the same university as the current presidential candidate, Joe Biden. You started out at Morgan Stanley in the equity research side and then switched to investor relations. Can you tell our viewers what motivated you to make that move?
Well, first of all, thank you, Bruce, for that. Appreciate the words. You're right, I attended the University of Delaware. It's where I started out actually majoring in chemical engineering, so I didn't think my future would be in business, much less investor relations. I ended up graduating with a degree in chemistry, and then I went right back to the University of Delaware for an MBA. But I didn't see myself as a chemist in the long term, so business turned out to be my calling. And I actually started my career in corporate banking in São Paulo, Brazil, which is where I started to really develop an interest in both the analytical and relationship-based aspects of banking. And in equity research, while we followed about a dozen companies in the Latin America food and beverage industries, my main points of contacts were investor relations professionals. And their roles very much reminded me of the corporate banking experience that I had. And so when the opportunity arose for me to get back into more of a relationship type of role, such as IR, I didn't hesitate.
How has COVID-19 impacted business, and how has A르코스 도라도스요 mitigated that impact?
That's a great question. Let me give you a little bit of context first. A르코스 operates 2,200 McDonald's restaurants across 20 countries and territories in Latin America and the Caribbean. Last year, we generated almost $3 billion in revenue and about $300 million in EBITDA. And although Latin America was one of the last regions of the world to be impacted by the COVID-19, we've probably been one of the most hardest hit. In fact, our two largest markets, Brazil and Argentina, I think are top 10 or top 5 in the world in terms of confirmed cases. So the impact has been pretty significant. Sales have been down, especially in the second half of March and the first half of April. We actually had to close about half of our restaurants for a period of time during those months. And we quickly implemented a plan spanning basically 3 phases. First is crisis management, where we prioritize the health and safety of our people and our guests. We focused our sales efforts on what we call the 3 Ds, in other words, drive-through, delivery, and digital. And we worked hard to convert our costs to as much of a variable cost as possible, suspending our investment plans and being very aggressive with managing our cash flows, which allowed us to stabilize our cash flows by the end of April. Today, we find ourselves in the second phase, or the recovery phase of the pandemic, or our plan. And substantially all of our restaurants have now reopened. They're operating at least one sales channel. 60% of our restaurants have fully reopened, operating all sales channels. And we're really capitalizing on the fact that we have the largest drive-through footprint in the region, which is the safest way really to eat out. And we expect the final phase, which we refer to as the full revival phase, to begin probably early next year as the market begins to normalize.
The corona situation seems to be getting worse as parts of the United States begin to resume opening its economy. What is the current situation like in Pennsylvania? Can you tell our viewers about Pennsylvania's economic situation?
Sure. So just to give you a little bit of context on Pennsylvania, we're the 6th largest economy in the United States. GDP is slightly over $800 billion and a population of about 13 million people. The industry, or the economy is focused, I would say, on some key industries, including agribusiness, manufacturing, natural gas, and tourism. And PA, I would say, in terms of the way we've managed the crisis, the way we've managed the coronavirus, this probably falls somewhere in the middle versus California, which I think has been very strict, and some of the other states in the south of the country that have been less strict in their approach to the crisis. I would say anecdotally, with the conversations I've had with hourly workers, people in businesses that I frequent, I'm actually surprised to say that I think people have traversed this crisis with less of a financial impact than I would have expected, in part because of the unemployment benefits the government's offered. So I'm cautiously optimistic in terms of how we'll come out of the pandemic because of that.
Now, finally, Dan, can you recommend to our viewers any American and Korean stocks?
Well, officially as an IRO and as not being a licensed investment advisor, I would say the answer is no, but I wouldn't mind sharing with you what I've done with my personal portfolio, which is probably a little bit more conservative in terms of focusing on blue chip stocks, stocks that have a higher dividend yield. I'm a fan of technology stocks, so I own names such as Amazon, Microsoft, Apple, and Netflix, different reasons for each of those. I like financials. My biggest exposure is Visa. And I think home improvement has done very, very well in the U.S. So Lowe's, for example, is a name that I chose. And as you said, in terms of Korea, although it's not a market I know well, what I would say is Samsung Electronics is a fairly easy stock pick. And I think the Hyundai Motor Company is a very interesting pick as well. Both companies' products are very popular here in the U.S. And as a car fan or a car junkie, almost you would say, I was pleasantly surprised to see the Kia Telluride ranked as the best SUV in America by Consumer Reports. So, the reality is the dealers today are having a hard time keeping the car in their lots. They're selling it at above sticker price. And so I think if they take care of some of the recent quality issues that they've had, given how important the SUV category is in the U.S., there's probably some good, interesting results coming for Hyundai in the coming years.
Dan Schleiniger, thank you for being with us on Global Science today and for sharing your insights.
It's my pleasure, Bruce. Thanks for the invitation.
Thank you. For U.S. stocks, Dan likes tech names such as Amazon, Microsoft, Netflix, and Apple. He also likes home improvement stocks such as Lowe's and financials such as Visa. For Korea, Dan likes everyone's favorite Samsung Electronics and Hyundai Motors. Thank you for being with us this week. I look forward to seeing everyone next week. Until then, please be safe and healthy.